less good was, of course, the main event between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. I feel like there were three opinions of people coming out of the show, and that depended on what they were thinking coming in. I touched on this in my Fighting Words column that's now on Boxing Scene, which I titled, Are You Not Entertained? The expectations that people had, some people were really expecting or hoping that they'd get the Mike Tyson of old and not just an old Mike Tyson. They were expecting a competitive fight. And I think those were the people who were let down. There were the people who just wanted to see Mike Tyson for old time's sake, even if they know that he wasn't going to be himself. And maybe that at least appreciated it, even though they knew the fight just wasn't that good. And then there were those like me who were just concerned about Tyson. I tell you, I think I spent most of those 8 rounds biting my fingernails, figuratively, not literally the way that Tyson was through his gloves during that fight, just hoping that he wasn't going to get hurt. I know that you didn't watch the fight, but what were you hearing from your friends, from other people in the UK before, during, after the fight?
I think I've told you this before, that Mike Costello, the legendary British broadcaster who we've had on the podcast, splits fights into 3 categories. And there's a reason I'm telling you this. Mike says that there's fights that boxing fans watch, and then there's fights which sports fans watch, and then there's fights which everyone watches. Now, not everyone watched this, and I feel like we need like this 4th random weird category these days, because this whole exhibition YouTube stuff has opened that up. I can't believe how many people I didn't expect to be interested in this, what were interested in this, and watched the fight. Like, one of my auntie's friends stayed up through the night. Bearing in mind it's UK time. This is like a 58-year-old lady who doesn't really care about sport, to tell you the truth, but she stayed up because she wanted to see Mike Tyson knock this gobby YouTuber out who she hated his attitude. This is the sort of category of people that this fight grabbed hold of. I couldn't be bothered with it because I knew exactly what it was going to be, and I just thought I'll watch what I want to watch back the next day. But going back to what you said as well, I also can't believe how many people thought that Mike Tyson might beat 26, 27-year-old Jake Paul, however old he is. And I can't tell you how many messages I got. I joked with you the other day and said I've had over 50 people message me and ask me my opinion on the fight before it happens. There was probably about, 11, 12, 13 separate people. But I can't believe how many people still thought that a 58-year-old Mike Tyson would be the same as he was 30 years ago.
And he wasn't even that good 20 years ago when he lost to Kevin McBride. It's funny, you're talking about that 58-year-old woman. I think she had more endurance and stamina staying up late than Tyson had in the ring that night.
Yeah, I tell you what, you've hit the nail on the head there, because look, I've read about the fight. I've read your boxing scene article. I've followed what some of my friends and colleagues have been saying on X and other places about it, and it sounds like he just went very, very flat-footed, very, very quickly, and showed about 3 seconds of the old Mike Tyson, inverted commas, and the rest of it was a bit of a shit show.
You know, there are people out there right now who are thinking that this was staged. They're conspiracy theorists who think, oh, well, Tyson looked so great in these videos that we saw on social media and the marketing materials. Well, yeah, no shit. That was meant to market the fight. There's a difference between when you are training and you have a trainer or whoever holding pads in front of you, and when you have somebody like Jake Paul. And yes, Jake Paul is never going to be confused with the top cruiserweight or top heavyweight, but he's good enough in this training that he's truly done over the past 5 years, and young enough and athletic enough that he knows how to avoid, to keep good distance. And Tyson also had to pace himself. He couldn't fight 6 rounds with Kevin McBride when he was 38, 39 years old. What was he going to do at 58 years old? I can't do the things that I did as a hiker 3 years ago, and I'm 42 now.
I know it's crazy, but I do feel like we need to open up this new category, because in a bit we're going to come on to yet another bonkers fight and the whole Misfits thing with Tommy Fury. But it comes back again to what we said at the start, or what I said at the start. This sport of boxing will never, ever surprise me.
It's going to be interesting seeing what happens going forward from three angles, whether Netflix remains involved in boxing or at least in these boxing sideshows. Be interesting to see whether Tyson, who of course said that he was open to fighting again, after getting tens of millions of dollars, will actually fight on. I don't think he will. And what will happen with Jake Paul from here on out?
Yeah, I think with Jake Paul, that there's lots of people. And look, I said last week, he can punch, and he can punch because he's not people out. He's properly not people over. He knows how to throw a punch, and he's obviously got some weight behind it. He's not terrible, but he's far from a good boxer. Look, he boxed Tommy Fury and got beaten. Tommy Fury isn't a great boxer. Tommy Fury would struggle, in my opinion, to win a Southern area title, to win an English title, to win. He's no way near British title level. No way near. Could he beat Craig Richards? Could he hell? Could he beat Joshua Buatsi or Anthony Yard? Could he hell? And Tommy Fury beat Jake Paul. That shows you the levels which Jake Paul, that shows you the levels which Jake Paul is fighting at.
And that was just a year and a half ago. So while Jake Paul might have improved, he can't have improved that much.
No, and to the point I was getting to before I went on a tangent and started ranting is Jake Paul needs to, like, if he wants to be regarded as a boxer by actual boxing people, then he's gonna have to beat someone at least decent. I can't even think of a name which he would beat in, like, the, I don't know, light heavy or cruiserweight division. Really, he's probably a super middleweight if he did things properly. But I can't think of a single name that he could actually beat, which other people listening to this would have heard of. And in terms of Tyson, he just needs to get a cigar, get his slippers, put his feet up, and enjoy an open fire.
With Jake Paul, it's interesting that we want him to face true opponents out there. But when you are getting this kind of audience and this kind of payday to face a 58-year-old retired fighter, when you're getting the paydays that he's had to face the likes of some of these former mixed martial artists, it's no wonder that the first words out of Jake Paul's mouth were Canelo Alvarez, or people are wondering whether it might be Conor McGregor or some of these other guys. I don't know what we'll see from Jake Paul going forward. I do think that the risk-reward ratio will change because you can only fool people or sucker people so many times.
You can, and I've just given Jake Paul a hard time, and I stand by every single word that I said. But one thing I will say about him is, yes, I don't like him. I don't like the way he does business. I don't like the way he goes about his work. He is my nightmare person to be stuck in a lift with. Like, I'm trying to think of someone worse. What I will say is genius marketeer. Is that a word, marketeer? Can I use that?
Yeah, you can use that. We
Yeah.
were talking the other week about whether Jake Paul was Marmite, and I compared him to the rotten shark in Iceland. And I think you and I both agree now. It's kind of funny, like, this was not a good fight, but nights like this, I think, bring out the best in boxing commentators like us or on boxing Twitter. So let's hear now from Kieran Mulvaney, my colleague at BoxingScene.com, who was in Texas much of last week and they're ringside for Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson.